Hello everyone, Carnasa here and welcome back to Kerbal Gets Real. We're now in the second half of 1962, where we have another Venus window opening up, we have another Mars window opening up, and we're going to attempt to go to the lunar surface, but this time we hope to bring something back to Earth. Just a quick heads up, the start of this episode is going to take place entirely in the vehicle assembly building, so if you don't want to see all of this build stuff going on, skip to 9 minutes and 30 seconds and that's when the actual yearly stuff starts. But anyway, yes, this thing that we are designing here, it's going to be called the Piazzi Orbiter, and the reason why it's going to be called the Piazzi Orbiter is because this is going to be a mission where hopefully we are going to go to Ceres, the dwarf planet, and orbit it. Now, I had the choice of going to Ceres or Vesta. I've never actually been to Ceres before in real solar system. I have been to Vesta in a previous playthrough, so I thought I'll go to Ceres. It's somewhere that I've never been, something quite exciting, so yeah, I'd quite like to do it. Anyway, obviously Ceres is quite small, its mass is it's not a very large object in space. It is a dwarf planet after all in the asteroid belt, so it's going to take a rather large amount of delta V to actually capture there, because we're not going to be helped out by the planet's mass particularly, well, not particularly much, so we're going to have to cram those two top stages full of delta V, and I think I went for around 6,000 meters per second in total. And it should be able to make the capture. However, I have done something with this mission that it's not ideal, I'm gonna say. So we've got a Juno engine, however it's not the Juno 6K that I have been using before. No, it's a more advanced one, but the problem with this engine is it only has one ignition. So yes, we're going to have to use that to circularize not circularize, we're using that to capture at Ceres, and that's going to be the main focus of that engine. However, because it does only have that one ignition, we're going to have to be really careful with it. It does have quite a high failure rate as well, which may be a little bit problematic when we actually get there, but we'll have to see about that. I have enabled extra telemetry and an extra pre-light in order to try and get that failure rate down as much as possible, but still, it's still around 15%, I think, so I'm putting a lot of trust in this thing that it is going to be successful and work out fine. But yeah, so we're gonna have to hope that the test light gods are kind to us and really are in our favor, because yeah, it's a bit risky. I'm kind of sitting here recording this now thinking, why oh why have I done this? But I'm sure we'll we'll see what happens when we get to that. But anyway, I've just been working on the modular launch tower here. I did say last episode, obviously this is something completely new to me, so I'm just trying to get the feel for using these parts. Now, I did already have a launch tower for the Icarus X, which is the launch vehicle that is going to launch the Piazzi Orbiter. However, what that launch tower did, its height was so great that I had to launch it on a 1,500-ton launch pad. That's obviously not ideal. We want to be launching this on the 700-ton launch pad, because that's about how much it weighs. So I went and redesigned it, used this thing, and actually managed to get the height down below 76 meters, which is the maximum height that you can use on that 700-ton launch pad. Now, the second thing that we are going to be working on whilst we are in the vehicle assembly building, this is going to be our attempt at going to the moon, landing, getting all of that amazing scientific data that we can pick up, surface samples, all of that, and then returning to Earth and recovering it in Earth. And so this is going to be called Artemis LRP, standing for Artemis Lunar Return Probe. It all makes sense really if you think about it. So what we've got here is that little stage there it's going to be our stage that transfers us from the moon back to Earth. And then obviously we've got a little bit of RCS on that ball on top to try and maintain attitude when we actually get back to Earth, so that that heat shield is pointing exactly where we want it to be, so that when we come screaming back from the lunar surface, that ablative heat shield is the thing that is going to be taking the brunt of Earth's atmosphere. That's really what we want. And I've put fairings on the side of this. I know I've said I'm trying to avoid using fairings unnecessarily. However, I feel that this is justified in the fact that it is kind of a heat protective cone around that all-important core that we are trying to return to Earth. That's why I've used the fairings there. It's not for aesthetics. It's actually, I've got kind of an idea in my head that this is, it's got a useful purpose. Anyway, this next stage is going to be the stage where we actually take off from the lunar surface. So I think you need around 1800 meters per second to get off the lunar surface. So I've overbuilt this thing, but then I always find it's nice to have a little bit of wiggle room. You don't want to well, you can try and get it as tight as possible, but that kind of, it's a little bit scary, and I just like having a little bit of room to play with. And one thing that I'm going to do with this mission is I'm not gonna have a stage for a specific part all the way through. So this stage here is going to be taking off from the lunar surface. However, the way I have built this, it's going to get a little bit of a boost from the lunar landing stage, which is this stage, those 4 tanks on the side. Yes, they will have a little bit of fuel left. Well, actually, no, they will have hopefully a fair amount of fuel left when we've actually landed. So this stage is then going to help that stage in the middle get up into a lunar orbit, and it's also, this stage will also do the final descent. And another thing that is going to help us do the final descent, and I'm quite, well, it's quite an efficient design, I feel. What I have done is I have done my translunar injection, my lunar capture, lunar circularization, and then the start of the final descent all in a single stage, which is currently the stage that I'm working on here. It is a single RL10 3A3, I think the configuration is. And if we look, we get, well, yeah, I'm currently looking at 5,400 meters per second of delta V. Obviously, that is going to go down once I put the avionics on, and the RCS fuel for those RCS thrusters, I'm going to go with Aerosine and NCO again. I feel like it's the best configuration of fuel that I can use at the moment. It seems to do the job exceedingly well, so I think I am going to be using that for quite a while. But yeah, even after we've done all of that, we've got 4,800 meters per second in this stage. So if you think about it, translunar injection is going to be, what, 3,150 meters per second. Then you're going to need about 800 meters per second to circularize at the moon. So that's about 4,000. That gives us an extra 700 meters per second of that stage to begin our final descent, which is going to be really nice. So all these stages are there, therefore they're helping each other kind of work. And actually, what I have also done is, someone did mention this in a comment about attaching some RCS to my upper stage of the Icarus rocket. So I have done that, and the great thing about this is now we're actually going to use a bit of the upper stage to help us get to the moon. So once again, another stage helping us along. But there we go, that is the end of the vehicle assembly building section of this episode. I do apologize for that being rather long. It's just kind of how this episode rolled out. I had a lot of planning to do at the start, and yeah, you may notice there are actually 2 rockets in my storage at the moment. Voila, 1 and more leg, and I will get to those when we get to those, but I did build those off camera when I had to rebuild my entire fleet of launch vehicles, so we are going to see them both being launched. You just won't see the construction because, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I forgot to hit record. But here we go. Voila! on an Icarus X launch vehicle on the 29th of September 1962. Our third? Yes, our third attempt at going to Venus and landing. We've had that contract for quite a while now. It's getting dangerously close to us failing it, and well, we would rather not that happen. But this launch was all successful. We managed to get it up safely and nothing went wrong. The problem with the transfer window that I have gone for here is it doesn't take a lot of delta V to get to Venus with this transfer window. However, it does take a lot of delta V to slow down, and you can see there, actually, there we go, we did have a failure. One of those RL10 engines failed, and I was very quick to actually reactivate that engine, otherwise we would have spiraled out of control, and that would have probably spelt the end of the mission. But anyway, yes, lots of delta V to slow down, and we are going to need to slow down. We can't aero brake because this mission does rely on an orbiter and lander working in tandem. So yes, but it is designed, it does have a lot of delta V in its final stage. So hopefully, once we get to Venus in about 180 days, I think it should have 166. We should have enough delta V to slow ourselves down and finally land on that thing. So that was voila, which is the Venus Orbiter and Lander. Now we are waiting for more leg. That stands for Mars Orbiter and Reconnaissance Probe Landing Experiment Gambit. Yeah, I came up with more leg as an acronym, and I really wanted to find words that actually fit that acronym, and I did struggle a little bit coming up with that, but I'm kind of happy that I got to call a spacecraft more leg, if I'm going to be particularly honest. But here we are on the launch pad. It is the 20th of October, 1962. More leg, our Mars landing attempt on top of an Icarus 1 launch vehicle. That's right, we didn't even need to use an Icarus X for this thing, so it's kind of efficient considering, yeah, we used the Icarus X to actually send a lander to Venus, which is obviously it's a lot heavier than an Icarus 1, so this thing is a lot cheaper, and it should be able to do the job. Like I've said before, I do go into Crash and I test out all aspects of the mission, so I have tested out the lander of this, I've tested out every stage. If everything goes according to plan, which is, yeah, that doesn't always happen, but if everything goes according to plan, this thing should land on Mars, and that would be brilliant. I'm really excited to see the surface of Mars, obviously with all of the planets having had an update quite recently. I am playing with the most up-to-date RSS, so yeah, no, it's going to be really, really cool to go and actually have a look and see all of the improvements. And I would quite like to, at some point, get a rover over to some of these planets. I am playing with a mod called BonVoyage. I think it works within RSS. I have done it so before that I have set myself up configurations before, so it does work, but we'll have to see. Basically what it does is it's like a rover autopilot. It sends your rovers off in the background. Yeah, that is something I would quite like to get that and just make sure that's all working, because rovers in KSP are rather painful. Yeah, they have a tendency to flip and just not work, so it's nice to have them move in the background, especially in something like RP1 where you are doing stuff all the time. So that is something, maybe not for a few years, because we've got other things to focus on, such as, well, crewed lunar flybys and all of that, which will be coming very soon. It will be coming very soon, but it is something that we are going to be looking forward to in the future, definitely. And here we have Piazzi on an Icarus X launch vehicle. Piazzi, so named after Giuseppe Piazzi, who was the astronomer that discovered the dwarf planet Ceres. So the orbiter that we are going to send to, well, orbit Ceres has been named in his honor. Now, Ceres is very, very difficult to get an encounter with because its orbit is so inclined compared to the rest of the planets in our solar system. It's quite difficult. And I did mention when I was building this thing that I only have one ignition on that stage that is going to capture at Ceres, which is a problem. And you will see why this is a problem in a minute, because, well, to make deep space maneuvers, I'm going to have to rely on my RCS. So yeah, that did actually happen. And to try and fine tune that encounter, which is really hard to get an encounter with, because as I've also said this episode, Ceres has such a small mass. So actually getting a flyby, it's quite difficult to get an encounter with. Yeah, so to fine tune that encounter, I'm going to have to use my RCS, which is, well, it took a really, really long time, and even by the end of my time in Earth's sphere of influence, I couldn't really get it down to somewhere where we were still even, well, we weren't even going to get a flyby, we were going to miss Ceres completely, so I had to make a deep space maneuver in order to really try and get as close as possible. And yeah, so I did 80 meters per second here. You can see that's how long this maneuver took. This is still in Earth's sphere of influence. That was done using pure RCS fuel. This is sped up to 4 times, and well, it's sped up times 16, I guess, because it's 4 times in-game physical time warp, and then it's also 4 times in post. So this took a really, really long time to do. And even when I did this, you can see my maneuver says that I should get an encounter with Ceres. Even when I finished this, with the maneuver completely done, as pretty much as close as I could have got it, nope, we still did not get that encounter, so we did have to create a deep space maneuver in order to do that. I think the next time I try and go for something like Ceres or Vesta, I am definitely going to give myself an engine that has multiple ignitions, just so I don't have to sit through this and do all of this kind of fiddly maneuvering all over again. But oh well, the mission, it's on its way, and we should make it. But anyway, one thing I do want to quickly address right now is I have had a couple of people saying in the comments asking about a mod list. So in this episode, in the description, you will find a mod list for my playthrough, and in every future episode that I will be releasing on this series, I will also include that in the description. I should have done it from the start. I didn't really think, but yeah, as people have been asking for it, it's gonna be there, so don't worry, you can go and find it, and yeah, it'll be down there, down in the description below. But yeah, that was our series attempt all done for now. We can worry about that in a few hundred days when we've got to make that deep space maneuver. Now, the next thing that's on our list of things to do is to finally send our lunar return probe. Can we go to the moon? And can we make it back? So here we have, on the launch pad, Artemis LRP1 on the 11th of December 1962. Oh no, we are launching at December. That is not a good idea. Oh well, the launch went fine. Nothing broke, nothing went wrong, everything went off without a hitch, which is quite nice considering how bad December has been to my space agency before. I did mention that for some reason 1962 Part 2 went exceedingly well. I didn't really have any issues at all, apart from the spinning RL10 stage. Yeah, no, nothing broke, no test light failures, extreme test light failures, so that was all really nice. And you can see what I've done with LRP1 there is I have used that upper stage to kind of boost my translunar injection stage to give it a little bit more delta V when we actually get to the moon to circularize, which is what we are doing right now. Then, as I was saying in the vehicle assembly building section, this stage is going to circularize here. We are then going to start our final descent with this stage, which hopefully means that we are going to have more delta V to actually get us back off the lunar surface with those RCS thrusters when we need to. Now, one thing about this mission, we're not going to see it return to Earth today, and that is because I want to leave this on the lunar surface for 30 days because it's got some experiments on it that will last 30 days long. And unfortunately, that will put us over into 1963 Part 1, so we will be seeing the return of this in the next episode. But there we go, that is all folks, that is us done for 1962. We've got a lot of things that we're going to be looking forward to in 1963, but be sure to catch those in the next episode. If you have enjoyed this episode, why not go and give it a like? If you have really enjoyed this episode and would like to continue with the content that I put out on this channel, please do go and subscribe as well. I have been Carnasa, and I will see you later.